Okay, we'd like to open the this meeting of the Templeton Community Preservation Committee. The first item on the agenda are the minutes from the previous meeting, which was September 8th. Dennis has shared with us a copy of the minutes. If anybody needs more time to review, that's certainly fine.
I'm good.
You're good. Any comments or questions or edits or editorials?
Make a motion that we accept them.
Motion made to accept. Is there
Second.
motion made in second? All those in, I guess we have to do a roll call vote.
Hmm.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Carrie,
Aye.
John, aye. Dennis,
Yes.
aye. Mike, yes.
Aye.
And Candace, these minutes are approved. So the next item on the agenda. Now, one thing I did want to because we have the minutes here from our last month and a couple items that we discussed, I just wanted to share. It does say in there that the surveyors will be coming out to look at Houghton Park in Otter River. That has been done and the bill has been paid and the pins aligned with everything. Essentially, that parcel of land has three parcels. The big parcel is the field in the back, and then there's two little parcels that actually are the road frontage. It's never been plotted into a single parcel. That could be done. That would just be a legal expense. That's up. And so that information, the report, has been shared with Adam at the selectman's office. And the discussion needs to be who is going to be involved with the process of moving forward on the park and anything else that the recreation might want to do. The light and water has been involved because, of course, Mr. Houghton was involved with that. So progress was made. And that's the status of that. The other item I'm reminded of is that we had discussed November 17th as the tentative date for the needs analysis meeting. November 10th would have been our normal meeting, but the building is closed, Veterans Day. So we're going to cancel that meeting. We're going to cancel November 10th. And then we can schedule both our regular monthly meeting. And I haven't actually cleared the room yet. I think we looked and didn't see anything. Or conversely, and this is also something we could do, is we could roll it to the December meeting, which would be the second Thursday in December. And just have no meeting in November. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? We'll come back to that at the end of this meeting.
Yeah.
When
I think that does make some sense because now we have just a little bit more than a month to try to, get the word about the needs analysis. Whereas if we just focused on a December date, we could just really, have a little bit more time to try to publicize that. And
that makes sense to me as
if we
well.
don't have any burning issues for November, we don't need a meeting for the sake of a meeting.
Just so to that end, to share a couple of items, just today I heard from MPZ, that is the developer of the Ballville Elementary School project. They have received their comprehensive permit from the town, and they are looking to submit their request for financing to the state in January. So he was asking if, he was saying he'd like to give the committee an update, and then they will seek letters of support, not only from this committee, but they also copied Mr. Brooks for the Historic Commission as well. I said, obviously we can't be on tonight's agenda, but we could be November. And he said November's fine, but I'm sure December would be fine also.
Yeah, I think that fits in nicely too with an issue of a needs analysis because they're focusing on housing and largely on housing. And so I think that blends well.
And the one other item that we have a request from is I also heard from Joe Salata from the Cemetery Commission. He wants to get together to talk about, the Baptist Commons Cemetery, doing some cleanup and restructure, make a project and put a sign in there. So like a Town meeting article for next May. So that would also fit within the December thing. So that is, according to my calendar, is December 8th. So is everybody on board with that?
So there'll be no meeting and
There'll be no November meeting. I'll just cancel that.
What time will it be December 8th? We're gonna stay at 7 or we're gonna go a little bit early since it's winter? It's not.
I think 7 is still good for me.
Okay.
Just because there's a lot of shuffling around that I need to do. But what we would do is in the past, we could actually move it to 6:30, because we have this needs analysis meeting and a regular meeting.
Right,
And we need to just, so we could do the needs analysis at 6:30.
yeah.
Okay,
Does that work for you, Carrie?
yes, certainly does.
Mike, does that seem okay?
That's what's gonna check my schedule.
Okay. And then what about you, Dennis?
Yeah, you said the eighth.
Yeah, December 8th. So let's see what Mike.
Yeah, I got nothing on the eighth, so.
Okay, so then that's it. We'll post the needs analysis meeting for 6:30 and we'll have a regular meeting at 7:30.
I mean,
And
some,
it'll be a half-hour meeting.
Okay.
Hopefully.
6:30 and then 7, not 7:30, right?
Well, if, we don't want to cut people short if somebody actually shows up.
Okay,
but
okay,
if they don't, we're gonna be, what we do, sit around. till
How about
7:30?
7:15?
okay.
Okay,
all right.
that's what the difference, that's good.
Well, it's a public forum, public input meeting. If nobody shows up, then we
Yeah.
close the meeting, that's all.
Yeah, but you post a time for the
Oh, we have
next
to wait for
meeting.
the next meeting, because we're posting the
So if you
time.
post a time at 7:30, you can't start at 7 technically, I guess.
So yeah, 15-minute difference, that's supposed
If
to.
nobody's,
Yeah, do a half hour.
okay, so and then at 7 on the agenda could be
Any leftover comments?
leftover discussion, continuation of needs analysis meeting.
I like that better.
Okay,
All right, so we're gonna start the needs analysis at 6:30 and the regular meeting at 7, and on the agenda for the 7 will be follow-up discussions on or resolution or whatever regarding the needs analysis.
All right.
And I will also, so Mr. Zoller will want to have a specific time where he can zoom in because he's coming from Boston. I don't think he's going to drive out here for this. And if he says that doesn't work, we could also have another date, or we could even have a taped discussion that could be presented to the board or whatever. We'll see what he says.
All right.
Okay, well, then we'll get back on track to the regular meeting agenda, which is a discussion of the town meeting. And of course, in this case, it's a special town meeting, which is Wednesday, November 2nd. I believe it's 7 PM at the middle school. And the articles on that will include the article, it'll likely be a single, I haven't seen the final draft of the articles from the town, but there will be, remember, there's 2 items requested for the Historical Society. One is the $75,000 continuation of the project to rehabilitate the building at the Grange, and the other is the $9,000 for the preservation of the draperies.
it's in the warrant on it, it's all in one warrant.
And it's all in one warrant. I hadn't seen it, but I'm not
Yeah,
surprised. That's,
So if one thing doesn't, yeah, they'll have to make a decision on the floor what to do.
yeah, they like doing that.
Yeah.
And then there'll be the $40,000 request for recreation
It's
for
on with
Gilman
them.
Way.
Yeah.
And is that it? I think that's it, but, okay. So continuing to move forward, the next item would be about the finances. Nothing new to report other than that we've paid for the survey. And we had approved, funding for the administrative assistant position for this fiscal year. There have been, interviews have been held. Some good candidates apply. It's
How
still
many?
the process
Do you
of
know how many applied?
2.
2.
And two good candidates. They were reviewed and evaluated by the committee, which consisted of myself, Lori, who would be the the supervisor of this position, and Holly, from the town's office. So there's continued discussion because in evaluation of the work process, they may look to try to figure out the best way to position that. So we're just gonna have to stay tuned for now. We expect to see things going on. Essentially, there has been discussion of, since those duties are so similar to other duties within the developmental department, maybe a single position could cover multiple roles. In other words, an allocation that the monies that we have committed would pay for the hours that this person would be committed to do ours, but the same person could do other duties for other departments
At their expense.
at their expense.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll, like, cause it does, like, we pay for the community service director to work with us. So it says how much money she says on our budget, and then someone else's budget, well, they have her at the senior center and it'll say how many hours that she gets out of their budget. I guess that's how it would probably work.
Yeah, so it's the person just gets one check,
Yeah.
but obviously the accountant has to allocate, take money from different accounts.
But it shows it on each budget. of
And
where
it would
it's
be a
at.
single rate of pay. And of course, once a position becomes over 20 hours, it's subject to benefits, which is an added cost. And I don't know what the rate is. I know where I work, it's like 40%.
Yeah.
And so that is something else that needs to be considered. So we're not there yet, but it might be a more efficient use in the grand scheme of things.
Mhm.
Nothing's done until we say it's done. So that's ongoing. Okay. Yeah, and anything else anybody want to talk about finances or anything like that? So the next item would be related to current projects, and I gave you the update that MPZ is moving forward with the Ballville Elementary School project. And that's really all I have for updates of current ones. I know this continues to be discussions on some of the other town-based projects, but no action. Which those include monies that we've approved. Scout Hall. Scout Hall is in the process of being evaluated for lead. I think we talked about that a couple
Are
months
they gonna
ago.
make an increase on their stuff if they come back with, they gotta take the lead out?
They only have so much money and so they're getting, it all depends on, it's like a black hole, right?
Mm.
They have to get a professional services company that does de-leading or testing and comes back with a figure. I haven't heard or seen what that is,
Right.
but that could really put a squirrel in the works, because, remaining is, there's $50,000, which you could blow on de-leadings. So we'll see.
Um,
Another thing that has been brought up, we have monies approved for Stone Bridge, and there had been discussion about, what to do with it. In terms, saw these different scenarios where it could be like open water. The replacement of a bridge was a couple $1 million to keep it a roadway. So the decision had been to make it a recreational area with an access bridge over, but not for vehicles. Because we even talked about a single lane, but a single lane is the same as Bryce almost. It's a double lane. And so yet there's some concern that there may not have been full process to discontinue a public road. Whether that's something that the selectmen can just do, or if that has to go to town meeting, that's in limbo. Nobody, as far as I understand, there have not been complaints about the lack of traffic. I have heard anecdotally that people would like to be able to walk over it. So there has been discussion about maybe even investigating even just an inexpensive pedestrian crossing. Not big enough for ATVs.
That's what I've heard is a few people are like, oh, I used to ride my ATV over there.
And then and I live in that area of town. I've seen some ATVs driving down Berry Road, so,
Some of the Boy Scouts,
dirt bikes,
they do projects like that. They do those like for their Eagle
Eagle
Scouts.
Scout.
They do bridges and things I've seen, like they raise the funds and then they do the thing.
Yeah, so money has been allocated to move forward on that. The question would become, okay, if in the grand scheme, the town needs to rebuild the road. You don't want to dump a lot of money in some kind of a pedestrian bridge. So if you could almost get like you could get like a simple aluminum ramp with like people use for handicapped ramps. Just to bridge it, if you could secure it. So there's gonna have to be more discussion about that.
Who's doing the discussing?
Well, I talked to Adam about it, but it was DPW and whatever requirements they would have would be Bob, would be,
Okay.
but.
Well, I came to the meeting that they had about the different, that when they did the study. And they reported out on the options that they had. The state will want to have some say because you're going over a body of water. And it won't be just the local DPW, it will be the state involved, so.
I just said put a plank over it for now, but.
I know. Actually, your cousin suggested the same thing at that meeting. He's, I'll fix it.
Well, anything happens like that, we don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so that's, nothing is ever easy as it, as it used to be. So that's the current project updates. Now for potential projects, as I mentioned, the cemetery is looking to do something down at the burial ground down by Baptist Common. Also, I've been contacted by the North County Land Trust to discuss potential future activities on the dwelling property.
Oh.
So I was gonna meet with Emily, the land person, but she wasn't well that day, so it didn't happen. But that project, so ongoing, they have been doing, they did the clearing of the field, returning it to its agricultural, disposition. That field area, is where the good soils are because of just been built up over years. And they've done invasives removal, and they've done native plant pollinator garden planting. That's
Mhm. That I agree.
Carrie.
Yep.
And so they have some residual funds remaining to do additional treatments. The challenge with removing invasives is that it never ends. And in a parcel of land, a large parcel, you can make inroads, but you're never gonna always get it away. That's just the world we live in with things being disseminated or whatever. So they've made some great strides. And they have some professional services folks that have done the work for them, and they're planning out, how to close out that grant, but what would be the next step? Who's to say? It is conceivable that they may want to make some improvements that would be something, maybe they want to have a well or something like that, so they have water. Is that something the town would be supportive of, because they could put community gardens or out there, or some more parklands or whatever. It's just in the conceptual stage. And we would obviously ask them to, present to us and then evaluate what is, allowed usage, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
Okay.
they've got some nice benches up there on the trails, and we did some of the plantings around the benches, and so it's beginning to look really nice.
It's very nice. So I'm glad you brought that up, because the other thing that reminded me is that we've had discussions about the signage.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know if people have seen the sign at the Common Burial Ground. That's like a Cadillac sign. It's very beautiful.
Mhm.
They're not looking at one that luxurious for out in the hinterlands. The reason that we supported that cemetery request is, that is so visible to the common, it's beautiful. So this would be more in the line where you typically see at a place where it's probably a metal sign, two facing. And, on both sides with I have to get her a copy of the town's logo that's clean.
The state just put a lot of new signage in the Bolton Flats area on 117. I don't know if you want me to stop and take some pictures of it.
That would be great.
All right,
if You're
I'll do
driving through, and even if you could find a vendor, because they've reached out to a local vendor who's not been returning their calls in terms of getting pricing,
Yeah.
so they were gonna possibly
Should
reach
try
out.
Lyman. Oh, is that who they tried? Okay, because he did our right to farm community signs.
Yeah, and they do great signs, and that's what we had recommended, and they just haven't had any traction.
Okay,
I'll stop and see if they have anything on the signs that says we did the work.
Yeah.
So when they do the signs, I haven't been down on these places, do they put something about where the funding comes from?
Yes,
Like
that's the
CPC
requirement, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say this project made available through the residents of
Right.
Templeton and the community
I
preservation.
thought that somebody had, what was it, the Narragansett, they had said something about getting a sign from us for our project or something. I don't know.
Yeah, so we can, we've had these temporary projects when they were ongoing. There's one
Right.
still over at Scout Hall. There was the one that was there.
Right.
If you go up to the World War I monument in the center of town, you'll see a beautiful one that's inlaid.
Oh, okay.
That's an example that,
Wow.
yeah, that's, and then other places. So the other thing that we have is multiple projects, we want to recognize each one.
Right,
Even the one up in town, it says CPA on the back,
yeah,
but it would have detracted from that
did they, that's really.
color. Yeah. but it is something that we need to make sure that we do, and standardization is good. You know, this, and so the town logo, they let people like to see that as well. I mean, they did that for that one, and they would do it on this sign, and it would say, you know, Town of Templeton, North County Land Trust, they own the land, but it's been supported by us. Not only has the previous projects included a couple of bridges over some wetlands to help with the trails.
Will we put, if they do the bathrooms, will we put one on the outside of the bathrooms? Will we have to, yes, on the concession stand thing?
Or someplace up there, we need to get a sign, because we also need to recognize that we've already had one project up there related to the moving of the field. You know,
Yeah, I haven't seen the fact for that about the moving of the field. That's why I didn't know until I came to the meeting.
yeah, you know, we do need to, and that's another thing I'm hoping that when we have an administrative person on board, we can make sure we have all our signage.
I mean, it could be there. Maybe I missed it when I
No,
walked around the park.
I don't, I don't think we, yeah, we probably let that slip through the cracks, so that's another one of my shortcomings. So we'll see what they might want to do. You know, just like any project that's to somebody outside of the town, like the Historical Society or the North County Land Trust, both nonprofits, there has to be a tangible benefit shown to the townspeople, like free access. Or, you know,
Plus the town holds the CR on Dwelly, so they do have at least a restriction interest, conservation restriction interest.
yeah. Which is a good thing. I mean, that was something when that land was donated, there was no funding vehicle to put that on there. So they could have, if they weren't scrupulous, they could have just sold it for condos, but luckily they did not. And we got that secured through CPA as well.
Do we, and maybe make some acknowledgement as to how that was the wish of the individual who passed?
They do have some signage down
And
there.
then also on our website, on the North County Land Trust, they have kind of the history of the property and
Okay,
how it was donated by David and.
okay.
Yeah, you know, they already have some nice signage in the kiosk, and so we're just looking, so the sign will also be more prominent that you'll know, oh, this is conservation land, you know, over the land trust, you know, responsible. Now you know, it's kind of tucked in there.
Yeah.
And so and we'll have to double check with Bob, but we had Bob down there, Sozik, about, you know, putting the sign perpendicular to the road so that you actually see it as opposed to have to look at it as you drive by.
Right.
The only issue is if it's reflective and it glares back into your headlights, or
Oh, well.
people are going so fast, they don't have time to do their reflectors.
I don't know.
Not that bad.
That road's in pretty bad shape.
That road is on the list.
Yeah.
Now, South Road is getting there.
Oh, yeah, finally. Although now it's become a racetrack, so.
Yeah, do they have that little flashing thing like you're going too fast?
Oh, yeah.
That's really not a deterrent, especially when you see people post like record 62. Yeah.
I used to.
High school.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all I had for updates and things like that. Is there other things that we would like to talk about potentially?
Has anybody checked the area that we have down on the Queen Lake Road? Just
Oh,
You mean we used to be the gravel pit down
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Um,
I go by it and I think about it.
well, luckily, you know, it has, you know, we put the gate up there, so
Yeah.
there's been no access, but I haven't been in there for a while. I haven't heard
Yeah, I
anything.
haven't been in there since.
One of the
Yeah.
butters is Matt,
Mm,
but he hasn't said anything, so maybe we should take a walk down there.
I think that's a good idea because I just went that once and that was at the very beginning of being on the committee. So I don't really even remember where I'd go, what
Yeah,
is
you just go
hours.
down Dudley Road and you go right past where they sell the honey there. You
Yeah.
know, you just go right in there and park and you'll see there's a sign
Okay,
and the barway is blocked. You can take your dogs down there or whatever. And,
Yeah.
you know, there's still conceivable access to do things through the rail trail,
mhm.
but
I didn't know that.
I haven't been down there for a long time either, so I wonder. Okay.
looks good. Yeah. No, that's a good point. We should take a hike down there, but I'm not gonna plan one, but if anybody goes down there and wants to let me know.
Okay. Who,
It's supposed to be a good weekend.
who holds the CR on that, or is there one?
That is held, yeah, by Fish and Wildlife.
Oh, Fish and Wildlife. So they, we don't know if they're doing monitoring.
No, we could ask, because they have land across the street from there. That was part of when that whole, they were gonna put a subdivision down there.
That's right
where
too, yeah.
the Asphalt plant was gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been up there either, so.
Yeah, so we've got some good blocks of land that have been preserved. I don't know if it's just come to my attention that our legislature in August passed a bill that talks about conveying the lands at the Templeton Developmental Center School. I think it's called Chapter 183 of the Acts of 2022, but it was done on August 11th, where approximately 1,200 acres, it's either 1,174 or 1,274 acres of that land will be transferred from the Department of Health and Human Services, which is the continuation of the Fernald School, to the Department of Fish and Game at no cost. So that will be, and they already have several hundred acres that they purchased through their monies that they get through licenses, et cetera. And so this will all abut that. Other parcels of the land, which is more like a couple hundred acres, and I can't remember exactly, they list all the parcels. If you happen to read, if you go to mass.gov and you look for the legislation, you can find it. That will go to the Department of Agriculture. And so that's really the agricultural lands. Included in there is a reference to the fact that, so DCAM is the Division of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance. They're responsible for all the property that the state owns. So they, in conjunction with the Department of Ag, will make 5-acre parcels of these agricultural lands available to the public for purchase, with the stipulation that an agricultural restriction be placed on that land. So in other words, it's for agricultural use only. Now, the restriction itself will be approved by Department of Agriculture, and it may allow for some construction of agricultural buildings or wells or something like that. I don't really know.
Wells, maybe.
Yeah.
Buildings are tough.
So the other issue is there, and this, so I've been alerted that they're gonna have another meeting about that because there's a couple other things that are going on. There are structures already there. And what's happening to all those structures? I mean, there's some beautiful, what used to be residences. Who knows what's going on with that? There is at least one parcel that has an historic preservation on it. That's the building that they never spent.
They have their own historic district up there, state historic district.
So what's
The
happening? with
Buildings that are in it
you
are
know?
falling down.
Yeah, I know. So I never.
That's
somebody-
typical of historic, state-owned historic districts.
Yeah, don't spend any money on it because, we can't do what we want with it. So there's still a lot of questions. It's just still, fresh paint, but, at least action is moved to secure the future of that. Who knows how many other, if they're gonna build any more, if they're saving out group home lands. I mean, they built a lot of them up there. Are they gonna do more? Who knows? So it will be interesting to hear. They're gonna come to the select board again sometime, and it's to be determined, and I'll let everybody know when it happens if I hear about it. So I know that's of interest to everybody because that's one of the things we've always talked about. What can we do about open space?
Hmm.
So those, the fact that there'll be a wildlife management area that should be at least, 15 or 1,600 acres is pretty significant.
Yeah.
And continued agricultural use. Now, one thing that I would like to have seen is if the town could add a chance to participate in the receipt of some of those agricultural fields for community gardens or
Mhm.
something like that.
Although without wells, and it's a little bit, I bet you the wildlife pressure up there is pretty decent.
Yeah, that's true.
Good deer herd of last.
Turkeys.
Turkeys and deer and. um,
Okay, anything else anybody have to bring up?
On the minutes from the last meeting, I had brought up that the historical commission was considering and doing some talking about getting the common surveyed. After that last meeting here, I brought information back with me that there may be some funding available to have that help out with getting that done. So there's a couple of action items right now. John Brooks was going to talk to Bob Sosek about what he knows about any surveys that may have been done in the common area already. I had the action item to go to the Parks and Cemetery Department meeting and see what they know about it. So we're just trying to get our hands around, how big this project is or how small this project would be. So we're moving with it. So just to keep it on the back burner.
That's great, because ultimately that could become a project for like if they wanted to do some kind of restoration of the common or granite curbing or things like that, or trees. But who owns it? And I know there is the Common Improvement Committee, there's the town, there's the church. A lot of it ties back to the deeds and sometimes, the surveyors go out there and they just confirm that the boundaries that are recorded in the deeds are accurate.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, why did we just spend that money?
Yeah, it's markup.
And then 5 years later, we got new people on the board and they ask them to do it again.
I did talk to Bob Whalen about that, and they did not complete, no, they didn't do a complete survey.
Yeah.
Of the common, only partially,
All right,
so.
all right, good.
Is that considered a park, the common?
Well,
It's common
originally it was
land.
common grazing ground,
Right,
but
I'm just curious,
Bring
when
your
I become
sheep.
parks, is that something I'm gonna?
this is considered a park.
Yeah, certainly the town is responsible to mow it and rake it.
Yeah.
I can remember when we had the town fairs up there with the Grange.
Well, didn't you used to practice with the militia out there with,
Uh-huh,
See what he did there?
yeah. All right.
sorry, yeah, no, yeah, okay, so, if we don't have any other,
Oh, I just had
Yeah.
one question. I just wanted to, I don't really want to really talk about it, but like the tennis court at Gilman Way is in bad condition. Now, if that was something, would that be kind of a project that this could do, or is that not in that realm? I get confused on
we,
that.
we would have to look it up. It's likely that it may be allowable, because one prohibition is no astroturf. You can't
Right.
spend, it's prohibited by the law, but there's a lot of other things. So a good thing to do is to go to that Community Preservation Coalition website.
Yeah, I
community-
tried to find to see if
and
that, I know
find
that,
if
I
somebody else has
think
done it.
there's some grants, like if we get a grant writer in the town, then that'd be good, because I think there's some grants and that kind of stuff, like tennis courts, multiple spaces. But I just didn't know, like, in this committee, if that was something that happens, or if it's more just like, I don't know.
I believe there could be some funding approved by the townspeople of CPA money for recreation that
Yeah.
might fit into that
Because
project.
I don't think it's gonna last a couple more years. I mean, it's getting really, I particularly don't feel it's safe.
And does anybody use it or would they use it? Yeah.
They're currently, yeah, the kids have, their little nets and they like to play the little street hockey. And if somebody's in this basketball court over here, they'll put the other hoops in there and try to play. But it's got a lot of cracks, a lot of grass coming out of it. It's, and the fencing is kind of old that's around it.
It's a good thing to, look at the big picture. What would be the whole scope of that? The playground was great, but now let's look
Yeah,
at, and making it secure.
yeah.
And then in why I'm suggesting you go to that community preservation thing to see what other towns have
Towns are
spent money
doing
on.
on that.
They
yeah.
may have done everything you want to do already and
Right.
then you know it. But when we can review, I think it would be allowed because it's a town-owned recreational site.
Cause I know that I've seen some grant type of things that have in that realm too, so that also could be a possibility for it.
Yeah, and if there is any grants, we always want to find an external grant, but we could be leveraged money. So sometimes you need a local contribution of 25%. Well, that could be CPA and then they could provide 75%, or like the US Tennis Association may have grants.
Okay,
It's worth checking out. That's great.
Yeah.
Anything we could do to support and improve that.
Yeah, that's
My
the
mind.
only thing really, with the, the bathrooms and that, but.
Is
that's the
pickleball
main
something they
thing
do
that's
on a
not
tennis court?
happening.
What is pickleball? Do they do that on a tennis?
Yeah,
court?
that's what I said to someone. I said that would be, you should multiple, you could do pickleball, tennis, you could do street hockey, you could do everything, just do everything in there.
Volleyball.
Yeah, volleyball, everybody loves that stuff, I know.
It's so
It'd be probably
popular.
better to
Tom
do
Brady even
multiple.
buying a pickleball team or something.
Yeah, I tried to figure out how pickleball works. I've never played.
I played once, but
It's just, it's
Not very good at it.
different, yeah.
Well, you keep us informed, and that's another thing to bring up, and when we do our needs analysis, what are the recreation needs? And if that's something that you could bring to your committee meeting and say, we're having this needs analysis meeting on December 8th,
Yeah,
you know, we would love to have you come and talk and see what might be possible and what is needed. But even if you develop a list of needs, things that you would like to see happen, bring it to the committee either as a written thing or come in person. If you could encourage them to come, that would be great.
okay,
And that goes for all the boards that you guys are on and everybody in the public. You know, December 8th, right here, 6:30. Okay,
Right.
Great.
all right, shall we wrap it up?
In favor. I make a motion that we close this thing out.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.